Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused in the areas of advanced illnesses, specifically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate types of services. I'm also a certified end-of-life doula, an avid writer, having written well over 500 healthcare articles dealing with chronic and terminal illnesses, an avid author, having published 21 books for hospice nurses. Many of them, like this one, which is my first one published, are used by hospice agencies nationwide for orientation and training. 24 books for caregivers. This is the most recent book talking about the Hospice Journey Handbook, what that journey looks like in real perspective. 5 books for holistic nurses. This, by the way, is my latest one, Validation in Action, looking at validation therapy. 6 books for my fellow end-of-life doulas. This is my most comprehensive one, dealing with end-of-life care planning. By the way, this could help hospice nurses as well. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying and the journey there. After all, we are all going to die. Wouldn't we be better informed if we knew what that journey looked like, less afraid? I try to publish videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification below. Occasionally, there'll be a gardening update or a house project update thrown in. This Monday, Wednesday, Friday, by the way, does correspond to when articles come out on compassioncrossing.info. And the theme there is the same. How do I help my fellow hospice nurse, my fellow end-of-life doula, my fellow holistic nurse, caregivers, and family members on this journey? Now, the topic for today's video, we're coming about that time of year where last year around this time, I published a video on how dividends can help make this journey a little bit easier. So for those of you watching, I've been going over my journey of bringing my RN concierge, my doula practice to Kentucky. My wife and I moved from York County, Pennsylvania. York County is just underneath Dauphin County. That's Harrisburg, the state capital of Pennsylvania. And how we moved to Madison County, Kentucky, South Central, late last year. And so I put out a video, that one of the ways of looking at semi-retirement, I don't consider myself retired. I was sharing with a friend that my wife, Laura, and I don't plan on ever formally retiring at all until we are probably either wheelchair bound or bed bound. And it's not just for financial reasons, it's for we want to be an active member of the community. And before I go on to the topic for today's video, which is touching some of the retirement elements, this is going to be part one of two. Part one of two. Today I want to talk about theory, practice, and hopefully giving some hope. And I need to give the disclaimer before we take a gratitude question break, but none of my videos is medical advice, financial, legal, or tax advice. I am not licensed or certified in any of those areas. This is me sharing my wisdom, my experiences for educational information, and for some people might be entertainment purposes. Are you kidding me? You're an idiot. Maybe you're right that I'm an idiot. I can be at times, not usually intentional. Before I go on to the topic of today's video, which in a way is trying to answer one of my friend's questions, in terms of I don't know if I could ever retire questions, I want to ask you, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? In our journey through life, it's not always the big things that drag us down into a state of despair and depression. It's usually the micro things. I'm not talking about microaggressions that you might read about in some of college courses, which to me is a little bit of nonsense, and I'm not trying to offend. But I'm talking about those I had a client die today, or um, here I am in Madison County, Kentucky, but just a few days before the filming of this, I film in advance of publication. The UPS plane crashed in Louisville, and now we're over. I think the latest death count is 11, and this is a tragedy, and it's sad. And I'm still working through the brutal assassination of Charlie Kirk as I process my own grief, and I've never met the man. But we have stuff happen in our life, small things, distant things. And if we are not resilient, resilient means the ability to snap back like a rubber band. If we don't keep that up, that habit of maintaining and building resilience, those small things that happen could be the straw that broke the camel's back. I was at a doctor's appointment yesterday in Lexington. And the doctor told me, and this is a part of my gratitude story for what am I grateful for. On October 27th in the evening, I had a medical event occur that was very scary for me. And I ended up, I was taking an on-life grief class. I ended up leaving the class early. I ended up telling my wife, please pray for me. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. And within an hour, the event cleared up. And I'm guilty. The next day, I'm doing Dr. Google, which doesn't exist, but I'm Googling, here are my symptoms. And I ruled out several based on description and came up with what I believe to be the symptom that I had. I mean, the medical label of what I had, and read up on it. And it said, even if this is a first time event, you need to see a doctor, a specific type of doctor, a specialist, as soon as you can. And so I did my research. Who does that in Kentucky? And in Madison County, Kentucky, we don't have a lot of specialists. Now, this particular doctor, DO, I prefer DO over MD. No offense, they're usually more holistic. I'm an holistic nurse as part of my practice. So I value the holistic approach versus deep dive medical. And there were two that do come to Berea, that do come to the area. And sorry about that. I'm getting texts, and if I don't acknowledge it, I get the text to get reminder beeps. Oh my word. Anyway, but I ended up going to Lexington because it was I could see the person sooner. In where I live, if you want the better practices, I'm not saying that it's poor here where I live, but you're either going to Lexington or you're going to Louisville, or you're going outside the area, anywhere from a 1 hour to a several hour drive. But the doctor shared, and this is part of why it's a bit to build a resilience. He was talking about, I had a rare event happen. He did it, acknowledged that I was correct. He said he was teasing me. I usually charge my patients more if they use Google to research their symptoms. He was kidding. He said, I hope you're going to give me a break because I'm a nurse, and yes, I'm guilty. But I'm also self-pay. I'm 62. I currently have no medical insurance. I have 𝐁𝐎𝐿, just for transparency's sake, which is not health insurance. And he was kidding me. But we talked about a condition adjacent to what I had that's more common than what I had. And he said, Peter, when somebody shares with you, oh my word, give me a moment. I've been getting Google scam verification calls at increasing rates for this past several weeks. Uh, but here he shared that if you have somebody say, if I have to, I have to have this set of stuff happen, or this is going to happen, uh, he's sharing what generally happens. And I know I'm being vague, but I'm trying to protect my own medical privacy. He said it's usually not what they're describing. They're describing they're afraid of the straw that's going to break the camel's back. They know enough of their condition that if they have this happen, they're going to have this type of medical event happen. Most likely, not guaranteed. He said it was these micro events that lead up, and now anything else can just push you over the edge. So he does believe that what I had happen was stress induced. And I do admit I am going through a lot of stress. Uh, I had to reach out, or I felt compelled to reach out to the founder of the school I went for, being an end-of-life doula. I know I'm going to go off on a little rabbit trail before I get to the topic for today, so please bear with me, because if you are an end-of-life doula, this does matter to you. Uh, this school, their basic end-of-life doula class was marvelous. I can't say it's a 10 out of 10, because there was a component which I was so thankful that I missed, that I did watch on the recording, and when I watched the recording, I was glad I was missed, because that section for those who are Christian was extreme woke, for lack of better words. But I took an advanced life planning class. The basic class was a anywhere, depending on how you want to do your rating, a 7 to an 8 out of 10 for their end of life class. So if you want to be certified, I still highly recommend them. But their advanced care planning class, their life planning class, was literally a negative 10 out of 10. Not worth the penny. Not, I can't recommend it. And it's not just me, and it's not just me because of my Christian perspective. I've had people say that they felt afraid in the class because there was censorship. I felt multiple people shouldn't say felt, I had multiple people reach out to me that promises were made for what was going to be deliverables in the class weren't kept. They're still, weeks after the class ended, people are calling, I shouldn't say calling me, they're messaging me, Peter, I need this. And the person's just, fell off the face of the earth. Oh, I'm so busy, I'll get it to you. But it was stuff promised at the beginning. Long story. But I ended up writing the founder the day of the attack later that evening, and no reply. And I was concerned during my grief class with the founder and the person who taught the class pop in, and now I have to deal. I'm not a fan of confrontation. I'll deal with it, but I just let the stress get to me. So I know I did a rabbit trail, and I apologize. But part of this for building resilience and looking at your stressors is you recover faster. So there are 3 pillars for building resilience. I ask about the third one on this channel. If you're interested, Peter, what are the other 2? Comment below. Non-judgmental, or reach out. I have in the about section how to contact me through other ways. But gratitude is part of building resilience. Well, what am I grateful for? Well, what I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for several people. I only shared the specific medical event with my wife and with 3 other people. And they prayed. And I'm so grateful. And I'm thankful for this DO that I went to that now is going to, my wife and I were both impressed. I asked her to come in with me. I got something like, you're an adult. Why can't you go on your own? Well, I'm glad that she came in, and she's actually glad that she came in, because she's more picky than I when it comes to healthcare professionals. And so now we know that that's who we're going to be using for the specialty that he's good practice. And we're going to see him in Berea because he does come here, but not as often as Lexington. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that he confirmed that it was stress and that he gave me some things to watch out for. I'm grateful for you who took the time to watch. And even if you didn't stay this far, maybe you're already gone by now, I'm still grateful that you popped in. I'm grateful for everyone who reads my books. I'm grateful for Dr. Andy. He shared with me, he still hasn't published his formal review, but he shared with me that Medicare should actually give this to everyone who starts Medicare. For when to the point that because most people, when they go on hospice, have Medicare. I've had patients in their 30s. You don't have to be on Medicare, but this is a brutal It's a reality check. It gives both the positive, but also the brutal negatives of hospice. And no, hospice doesn't kill people, but it does go over, we're not there 24/7. If you call because your loved one had an explosion, whether it was this out of this end or the other end, and you need somebody to clean it up, yes, we'll get there, but you're not number one on the radar. And yes, you matter. But if somebody's in respiratory distress, cardiac distress, blah, 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 they're going to be there. We're going to go there first. It's just a brutal reality check. And so I'm grateful for those of you who buy the books that I write and I publish, because it does help me not only to make ends meet, because even though the topic for today's video, which we're going to get to very shortly, part 1 of 2, is talking about dividends and semi-retirement and looking at financial means with the extreme disclaimer, this is not financial advice. But this all helps. It all helps because I operate Compassion Crossing LLC on a sliding scale. By the way, I do have the sliding scale published on the website, compassioncrossing.info. I don't have it blared on the site, so if you do go into the About Us and pick any of the service listing, when you go to the bottom, it'll say, see the pricing, and then you could look up the pricing for the services and how the sliding scale works. But I do go down to 0 more often than not. I get yelled at from my wife, but a lot of times people come to me in crisis, and I know I add value, but I don't want to add to their misery. And not that I'm expensive, but anyway, that's its own story. So I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for this, that this was, got tools to monitor for what happened, because it was concerning. So the topic for today's video, a friend of mine, a fellow follower of Christ Jesus, reached out to me for holistic advice. And in passing, they mentioned, I'm scared of retiring. I'm turning 65 in 2026, and I'm afraid. And so that you're aware, this is not something to be ashamed of or guilty. We're all afraid. We're all afraid. Fear, all emotions are God-given emotions. It's what we do with them that determines our character and shows whether we have faith in Christ or not. But the fear is by itself is natural. I was I'm being transparent. If you've been watching my journey, I try to be transparent, even if it makes me look like a fool or an idiot. Because how else do we learn from one another if we're hiding things or sugarcoating things? So uh, I'll go into my mistakes probably in part 2 of the video. But last November, we moved to this area in Kentucky, mid-November of last year, and they weren't serious mistakes. What Laura and I will cover, they're actually good mistakes to kind of have made, depending on your point of view. But it's more in favor of Uncle Sam benefiting than not. Uh, I will put in the description below links to 2 YouTube channels. I follow many, but 2 YouTube channels that I really, to me, they fit into the theme of part 1 and part 2, and that's with mainstream media and a lot of the financial experts out there give you and society at large the impression that you need anywhere from $1 to $3 million or more to retire. That is beyond false. Or let me rephrase that. It may not be completely false depending on how you want to live. I believe that you could live a happy, content life frugally without feeling like you're in despair. I'm pausing to try to pick my words because I've at times been close to being homeless. I'm thankful that I haven't. Those of you who've been following this know that we adopted special needs teenagers. Part of their life story is that they were homeless for a good portion of their lives, I don't know to what level to go into detail just for privacy's sake, but but they faced homelessness living out of cars and with strangers and shelters and whatnot. So I don't want to ever use words that, while not sugarcoating, or I just don't want to have anyone like, gee, Peter, I'm already there, you're now making me feel worse. I don't want to do that to anyone. But a lot of the mainstream media give the impression that if you wanted to be able to, like, you can't live on Social Security alone, and you have to have this much money so that you could actually survive. And they make it out like you'll be destitute unless you have that much. And there are people out there actually proving them wrong. And so before I go in, and I know I'm delaying getting into what I'm going to talk about, I'm not doing that on purpose. I'm weird. Uh, but Buzz's Retirement Garage. Buzz, I don't know if that's your nickname or a code name or whatever, but he lives in Ohio. He's a very transparent individual for the most part. I only put it that way, Buzz, if you're seeing this, because I don't know you personally, have not met you, but he does a good job at showing him and his wife are living examples of living on Social Security alone. Now, Buzz, I'm putting the same disclaimer Buzz puts in his videos, not every single one. He will share that you should have an emergency fund and additional money put away. But he does for well over a year now. He's been publishing regular videos where he puts out, this is the monthly budget. He goes, and it's a whiteboard. He does it literally in his garage or outside his garage, and he'll do a whiteboard with the marker breakdown. This is the Social Security income from him and his wife, and he'll do budget, like really fine detail, phone, TV, groceries, non-necessities, blah, blah, blah. And only a handful of times had he and his wife had to pull from his funds. But he shared with his viewers, for which I am one, that he retired with, I think it was around $200,000, give or take. We're not talking millions, we're talking a few hundred thousand, 200,000. And then there's Happy on Monday. And that's Julie, is the person who runs that. She retired, I believe, 59 and a half, tomato. And in her case, it was around $500,000. And she's not had to touch any of that money at all. And she's been living just on mainly a bond and CD ladder, where she gets so much money coming out, and that portion she uses the 3 bucket method. I'll put in a link in the description below, but the 3 bucket method, in brief, is 1 bucket is extremely liquid cash. um, I recommend a high yield savings account for that, but I don't know if she's using a traditional bank or not. That's her business. But and then bucket number 2 in her case, I believe, is her CD ladder. When you talk about CD ladder, that's where you have CDs that come due at certain times. I actually set up a CD ladder for my wife and I, um, where every month a certain amount and certain number of CDs will come due. Some months, a couple CDs will come due. It turns out this was one of the things that I didn't have to do. Lesson learned. but it was actually a good thing. It was a safe thing to do. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. I'll go over some of the bad things in this because it'll actually translate into part 1 of 2 for this video. But bucket number 2 is usually the safer, less liquid investments, and bucket 3 is your more risky investments. So happy on Monday, and again, I'll put in the link in the description below. But there are people out there, and there's more than that. If you want to move out of the U.S., there's I think it's called Vagabond something, who talks about retiring in Vietnam, the Philippines, and so on. There's a number of videos out there that you do not need anywhere near what mainstream media and the financial experts tell you. Now, getting into the topic for today's video, I want to go over I'm going to give you theory. Again, this is not financial advice. I cannot give those disclaimers out enough. So I want to talk about what if you had $100,000? What if you had $100,000? And I'm going to use an example that I have. I've been helping a friend. They received $120,000 from family members. They received a portion of an inheritance, so 120,000, and they received this money. Actually, let me see. We're in 2025, 25, 24. They received it in 23. They received it in 23. They did not have to take an RMD, required minimum distribution, when they received it in 23. It was $120,000 in 2023. They asked me, not as their financial advisor, Peter, I trust you. You come up with a way to make this work. Yes, that's a burden. And because I did, in transparency, make mistakes in 2023. Thank God I recovered from those mistakes. Where it went from 120,000 to I think we're down to 113 or 14,000. Yes, we lost money in the market. But I ended up rearranging things, and God is good, and I'm thankful. But we recovered to the point where at the time of this filming, it's now at 123,000, and this is after in 24 doing a required minimum distribution of a little over 5,000, and in 25 doing another, I think it was 5,600 minimum distribution, and even after those, so we lost 6, handed out 11, and yet we're now around $123,545. I'm looking at my handwritten notes. But what did I do right with this, and how did I do it to help this person as part of their retirement journey? So one of the things you can look at, and what I'm describing, again, not a financial advice, but it's only for those who are non-risk adverse. That means that you're okay taking higher risks, moderate to high, moderate to high. So there's a number of funds out there that if you're okay with risk, they pay very well, and they're wonderfully, kind of phrase, they're good from a tax advantage point of view. There's 𝐄𝐄𝐄𝐈, so 3 Q's, and the letter I is in Indiana, 𝐄𝐄𝐄𝐈. It's a covered call based on 𝐄𝐄𝐄. There's a fund called 𝐄𝐄𝐄 that looks at the NASDAQ 100. And when you talk about covered calls, and I am not an expert, so I'm not going to go, there's some financial channels I follow, like the, was it, oh my word, give me 1 second, I lost, our armchair, oh my word, sorry, Armchair Insider, and some others that I follow that they're not financial. They'll give the same disclaimers I do, but they understand this far better than I do. But So QQQ is an index for the NASDAQ 100. It trends up. Covered calls will never go as high as whatever index they're using for their calls, but they do option trading on the indexes to generate income that they distribute. So QQQI at the time of filming gives you about 13.4% distribution. This is annualized. This is all these distributions are annualized, but 13.4. So imagine going to the local bank. My wife and I have money at the local bank, and we literally, and I do mean literally, get pennies. I should say 1 penny on every $100, 1 penny on every $100 every couple months. In fact, I think it took close to a year to get 1 penny on $100. Is that horrible? I don't recommend. We have it so that we could use the ATM. I don't recommend traditional banks. I recommend high yield savings accounts. Um, you make dollars on your hundreds versus pennies. But QQQI 13.4%. SPYI, and these funds are from NEOS, NEOS. I really like their funds. SPYI. They're based on the S&P 500. Most of you may have heard of that. That's more popular than the Nasdaq, and that's more of the safer stocks. And again, these are still high risk investments, moderate to high risk, but that's 11.5% distribution. There's IWMI. That's based on the Russell 2000. That's your small businesses will consider small to mid cap. That's 14% distribution. And then if you're in the Bitcoin cryptocurrency, which is extremely, and I do mean extreme, high risk, that's one of my minor regrets, 30%. Minor regrets because of all the ones I've mentioned so far, they're actually up. They're actually, they boosted, the principal's up and the distributions are up. But BTCI, principal loss, 30%. But what I ended up doing for this, and I'm not going to be giving you percentages of accounts, but I took that 120,000 and did a split, QQQI, SPYI. I threw in SCHG. SCHG, that's a large cap. It's moderate risk, but it's a growth fund to try to grow the portfolio, try to provide some stability. And I did try, and one of the mistakes I made, I added in SHLD. That's the defense industry stock that prior to the peace talks with Israel and Hamas coming to a better proposition was actually growing like mad. And I should have realized, as much as people hate certain presidents, you got to give credit where credit is due. At least that's my philosophy. I know people aren't going to agree with me on this one, but he's good at least appearing to make peace. And so that fund is down. But by proper allocation of these, except for that one fund, this $120,000 is generating $13,000 a year in income. And QQQI, SPYI, IWMI, and BTCI, all these are NEOS funds, pay monthly. So every month, there's a little over $1,000 a month being generated. So if you think about it, the average Social Security check is about, depending on who you talk to, might be 1,000, might be 1,500. Let's say it's 1,500, $1,500. Well, if you're getting 1,000, if you had $100,000 and you were okay, that the principal you may lose principal, but you're getting the income. and you do this mix, and I'm not promising you'll get these results, but if you were getting $1,000 a month, okay, $100,000 a year, and if you did a mix of 13%, 14%, 11.5%, and the 30%, you could be getting $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year. And here, I did make notes. If I did not make my, and time will tell, because that 𝐂𝐒HLD was literally just less than a month ago. And I didn't sell it because I don't panic sell. But what I invested in that was $14,180. If I would have done that in that mixture of percentages, or at least got a minimum of 10%, that would have been an additional $1,400 a year. And the SCHD, which has been growing, by the way, the value of that is $16,500. Now, I think I invested $14,000 at the time, and it rose to $16,500. But if I got the same 10% on that as a minimum, that's an additional $1,650 a year. So that $13,000 a year, if I took those two that I intended for growth, one is growing, the SCHG, the other negative, that would have been an additional $3,000 a year. So it would have been $16,000 a year of income on $120,000. Again, oh, Peter, I only have 100. Again, if you did that mix, you could still probably get 12,000 a year, 13,000. So if you're willing to look out at what's out there in the NEOS funds, I don't get any referral fees, kickbacks, anything else. I don't get anything from promoting them. They're tax advantaged, so you could be using them in a taxable brokerage account. When we get to part 2 of this video, because last year about the same time, I went over how the initial investments were intended to bring about $48,000 a year. I did build up on that. We'll go over what does that picture look like, and what are my percentages in stocks and bonds, and so on and so forth. But I do have some of these funds in the taxable brokerage account for Laura and I. So they're very tax efficient, and I'll know how tax efficient in next year when we go to have our 2025 taxes done. And then either I'm going to be going crying, I made some bad mistakes, or it's like the tax advisor, well, I learned some things today. Thank you, Peter, for the tips. Don't know. But I do appreciate your time. I thank you. Take care, and bye.